How to invest your first million. On this video, I want us to go through step by step and check out how to invest your first million. I do not know how many of you watching me on this particular video have ever made their first million. Well, if you're comfortable, you can tell us, hey, how did you use your first million? Where and how did you invest? Oh, and by the way, where you invested, are you regretting now or did you regret? Are we together? Because let me tell you one thing. There is a certain hype that comes in when you make your first million. Because, well, of course, I'm not referring in terms of dollars. I'm referring in Kenya. Kenya, we use Kenyan shilling, not dollars anyway. So the point here is, that is by there like an equivalent of 10,000 USD or 9,000-ish there, around there, okay? It may not mean bigger figures when you're in, say, America or whatever the place it is, but it's quite of a big deal here in Kenya if you have that amount of money. And substantively if you're in an African continent. So when you make your first million, what happens is that there is a certain hype that comes in. You feel like, oh my goodness, all the problems now have been solved. You're now, be called a millionaire and what have you. And in most cases, the emotions might kick in before the logic. You're supposed to understand one thing. We as human beings, we have two sets of ourselves. We have the emotional part, and then we have the logical part. And the funny thing, the funny thing here is that logic is always delayed. Logic is always delayed. That's why you find people regretting. I have come across physical meeting with clients. They are telling me, Joseph, we made our first million, but we messed up big time. Right now, we are regretting. We bought some land somewhere. It's not generating anything. Some of the lands had some problems. I don't know even what we can do. I wish we can get that a million today because it can actually and what have you. Anyway, by the way, if you're there, you're a couple, an institution or whatever, and you'd like us to have a discussion on investments, that is my number. Text me on WhatsApp. Kindly text me on WhatsApp. Some people are calling me. Sometimes I may not be able to return all those calls. Even my team is trying the best, but they can. But the good thing is text me on WhatsApp. Now, the point here is this. You find that logic usually delayed. Now here you have your first million. You've tried the best. Probably it has taken you 10 years. Now you have a first million. Now, how do you invest this first million? Most people tend to think, hey, how person A invested their first million, it is actually a standard of reference. If you come to Kenya, you find that most people, the moment you speak the language of millions, there are two things that gets into the people's head: a land and a car. Apparently, those are the huge purchases. I'm going to repeat this point again. If you come to Kenya, and when someone gets into the language of millions, there are two things that hits in their head: the land and the car. But the question is this: how would you maneuver around investing your first million? The first question I would ask you before I tell you what you should do with your first million, not really tell you rather, but discuss what I think you should do, is where are you? When I said where are you, I'm not asking you in terms of your location, physical location. I'm asking you financially, where are you? What did you do to make that first million? Are you employed? Is it through savings? Did you sell a property that is in an inheritance? Or did you maybe won a lottery, of which I discourage you betting and doing those things? Or how exactly did you get that million? If you got this a million as a windfall is the money that comes from almost nowhere. You did not expect, you're just like, boom, you got a million. Be very careful. You're not a millionaire. You're having a million. Those are two different things. Being a millionaire is more of a mindset than having the million in your pocket. So if you got this money from a windfall, you are supposed to be very careful. Do not rush in investing that money. First, seek financial advisor. You would rather even use 20,000 or 50,000 out of this money to understand how to invest the rest so you don't mess up. But if you had saved this money throughout the time, saving, accumulating, thank God, you have a character and a behavior deep inside of yourself, not only the money. That's why we tell people when you are savings and investing, you not only get the cash, but you get yourself a character. So now, if you are employed and you have some job and you have this a million, the other question should be, do you have some time to run a business on the sideline? Yes, good. If you do, then what business do you understand? I didn't say do you love, do you have a passionate about? No, do you understand? ABC. Good. That business that you understand and where you would love to allocate or start that particular business, is it receptive to that particular? Because you can understand a business that you know very well. On top of that, you have a passionate about it, but where you want to start it is not needed. because it's not you who will be buying it or buying from that particular business. So you see, there are some stages that you have to go through. Are we together? Good. The other way around. Are you employed? Yes, I'm employed. Do you have the million? Yes, I do have the million. Do you have the time to start a business, say on the side house or something like that? No, I do not have the time. Good. Then leverage on the investments. Okay, what investment? Again, we zoom in into what are your targets? What do you want? Where are you going financially? What do you want? Again, we do what we call the risk analysis. At what extent can you take a risk? Because the best way to invest not only a million but any amount of money is to diversify, is to have several things at the same time. For example, you can fragment this a million and have, say, 250K invested in stocks. You can have another 250K invested, say, in special funds. You can have another 250K, say, invested in so you can have half a million invested in, also 250K invested, say, in a money market fund. Then another fraction can be put, say, in a treasury bills or a treasury bond. So that way you have distributed that money into different levels. One, you need to have an investment which offers you liquidity. For example, if you take 250K out of a million, put it in a money market fund, that will not only function as an investment but also an emergency fund, because that money is in liquid form, can be gotten at any given moment. Because whenever we are investing, we should always think about an emergency fund, not because we love emergencies in our life, but because we love to make sure that we leverage on that, not really leverage per se, but to make sure that we offer ourselves what we call a protective layer, just in case a BS happens. Are we together? So the first thing, if you have this a million, put your money into what we call an emergency fund. An emergency fund, this one is determined by the much you use in a month. Say if your budgetly home uses 60,000, put, say, 360,000 in an emergency fund. That way you are covered for the next 6 months. Then the other cash, you can buy yourself some stocks. Then the other cash, you can put it, say, in a fixed investment fund. Then the other cash, you can leverage on the special funds or the equity funds, the balance fund, the bond fund. The thing here is this: regardless of who you are and where you are heading, emergency fund is a necessity. Number two, make sure that the money, you distribute it across the points rather than taking the huge cash and putting it in one end. Unless we have a situation whereby you can actually make your first million, but you're a business person. In this regard, you find someone telling you that a million, sure, it is my savings, but I wouldn't love to fix it just in case I may need it because I run a business. And don't forget this: businesses run on vitamin M, meaning money. So you can take a fraction of this money, have it as an emergency fund, say 300K. Then the 700K, you can open another MMF such that one functions as an emergency fund, the other one functions as a holding basket for this cash, which is not idle, is generating some in cash and can be gotten at any given moment just in case a need arises. So it is good to understand first. Don't, for example, if you have a million, the way I would invest my million is different from how somebody else would invest his million. So it is always good to make sure that you dissociate, you understand where are you going, what do you want, and where are you. For example, you find somebody, you get your first million, you take your first million, your friend bought a parcel of land, then you rush 100 kilometers from where you live, you buy a parcel of land, then you go back to the city. The land is not generating anything, it is just an asset. Yes, it's appreciating in value, but the point is, it's not putting money in your pocket. And at all the time, the journey towards the financial freedom is anything and everything that puts money in your pocket. That is what we call financial freedom. But then if you're just accumulating some assets that are not generating anything, then you're getting yourself into problems. And I can assure you, you might actually reach to a point whereby you have a problem. I'm going to give you a simple example. I had somebody who was working in Qatar. That person is a Kenyan. He came back in Kenya with it was 1050, in meaning 1,050,000. The guy bought a land worth 1 million somewhere. Quite decent, quite okay, and quite good. Now the guy was confused. Hey Joseph, I had a million. I bought myself the so-called prime properties. Now the guy is a landowner. He can point to everyone and anyone. Hey, that is my land. Which is okay. The guy has a title deed in his pocket. But the fact is, this guy does not have any cash flow. He was even thinking of, oh God. Sometimes I wonder, okay, I don't blame anybody, but because this financial thing was never taught to us, this is where we go wrong. The guy has lived in that particular place for 4 years, working tirelessly. He came and bought a land in a very prime property because he come from a place whereby lands are worshipped. You know, you are told, well, by virtue of you buying a land now you're wealthy. The guy was left with, I don't know, some couple of few coins. Then the money was done. Then he got me. Some of his last coin is what he paid me to advise him. So he was asking me, now what do I do? I have a land, yes. I don't have money to build. I can't build my own home. I can't build even a structure. I can't start a business in that place. I can't do nothing, but I have a property. So I told him, you sacrificed your cash flow, your purchasing power in acquisition, or you tied down your capital to own a property. So the guy was even, actually this is what he did. He took a loan against the land to get another financing and funding to go back to Qatar for another, I do not know how long, for him to get the money and come back. What if he goes back and gets another million for a whole 4 years and then he comes? He has a property. Probably, I know you're going to tell me the land appreciated. Probably, let's say it has appreciated to up to 1.5 million. Guys, please don't just invest or buy things based on the emotions. Be logical. Sit down with a pen and paper. Find out all the ways. That guy could have just put that money, say, in a very neutral, simple investment. My MMF, just put that money. He knows, yes, I have a million somewhere, can use it to do anything, and at the end of the month, I'm getting my, say, 9,000 or 10,000 each and every month. It is not much, yes, as you figure out what you're going to do with that money. Please understand, are you suffering from cash flow or are you suffering from an investment? Those are two different things. And I don't know why everyone thinks that they're suffering from investment. Some of you guys, you don't need investment as of now. You need cash flow. For example, somebody tells me, hey, Joseph, I want to invest in treasury bills, but I have 20,000. Forget about treasury bills. You cannot afford based on the numbers that you have. Find the investment. First accumulate. You are in the accumulation phase. Accumulate. You do not have cash flow. It's like somebody telling you, I have 20,000, but I do not have a job. I don't have anything. You can't direct that individual to go buy shares. They won't pay their bills. You tell that person, think about a business, something that you can do, a makeshift business or whatever. Just look for something you can buy and resell and make some, because you're not suffering from investment, you're suffering from cash flow. You have a cash problem. Learn how to make money before you learn how money makes money. Please. Those are two different things. But people are rushing into knowing how money makes money, and you do not have it. You start by making it before you learn how to use it to make more. You understanding this? So don't take your financial muscle that you have, that you've accumulated in years, to go buy an asset that is not. So what is the best way to invest $1 million? It is to simply do your self-analysis. Financially, where are you? What do you want? Where are you heading? So when you know where you are heading, then you retract to the present. You ask yourself, hey, I'm going here. And if I'm going here, then it means that I have to now figure out, how do I get there? If I buy a land, will it help me to reach where I'm going? If there's a, for example, I had one client, I wish I can remember. The guy was preparing, was it compost manure or hip manure or something like that. He was buying from different farmers, and then he had leased a land somewhere, and then he could make those compost manure, and then he could sell to some people. So he was telling me he was using a lot of money to actually do what? To, lease the land so that he can make his things and be able to sell. I really hope I can be able to describe it. I think it was that way. Then, at that particular situation, the guy had around, I think it was 1.2 million. Then he was asking me, is it a good idea to buy that? At that particular place, the guy had already an existing business that needs a land. And of course, him acquiring that land, it means him saving more from the leasing. And of course, leveraging on his business, because this is what he was doing. He was making the compost manure from a leased land, then taking some to take to another place where now customers are there, and of course heap it there, another leased land. So where he was acquiring that land can function both, where he's manufacturing or preparing it. I don't know whether it's manufacturing or processing it or preparing it, and of course sell it from the same place. So he was cutting cost on both ends. The land where he's heaping it to, present it to the customer, and of course where he's preparing it. So in that case scenario, it is a productive idea to actually purchase that land. I really hope I'm making sense. Or maybe let's say you're an agribusiness student and you know everything about farming and what have you. You may need a land, and by virtue of you purchasing that land, you can be able to do your things well and good. Go ahead and do that. So it is good to understand the way person A would invest his or her million is not the way different person, another person would invest in. Are we together? That's why we always, I don't like to say, hey, if you have a million somewhere, put it on stock. If you have a million somewhere, put it on. Now that's a guesswork. Not everyone will need the one. Will need this one. Another one, let me, as I finish up this video, we can have another guy who has this a million, but he has been employed somewhere in a business, let's say in a hardware business. So this guy has been saving, accumulating little by little, little by little, little by little. And this guy is employed in a hardware. He knows everything from the supply chains, the manufacturers, the distributor, the processors, the customer base, the whatever. He knows all the point of operating, point of sale systems, and he knows everything in that particular business. So, it makes sense for this guy to take some of his money or even all of it and put it in a business that he understands. Do you know that? At times, we're telling this guy to take this $1 million and put in, say, in a money market fund or other investment may not make sense, but for him, can make sense. Anyway, guys, that is my point on how to invest your first $1 million. Probably some of you have benefited and some of you did not. That's a typical class. That's how things work, okay? In case you need my services, that's my number. You can shoot me a call. Let's talk business. For now, it's a goodbye. See you the next time.